I work at a gas station in New Zealand, and despite the downside of dealing with difficult customers, I have genuinely always loved my job. The station I started at has a lot of homeless people or individuals who are struggling financially, even if they do have a home. One homeless man in particular has become my stalker. When I first started, my coworkers informed me that this man would come in and we would give him a free cup of hot water, which he would add some sugar sachets to. They mentioned that he's a bit strange but generally harmless, except for his tendency to swear frequently. Since he was homeless, I felt sorry for him, especially during the winter when I first heard about him, so I happily provided him with his water. However, this man wouldn't just take the water and leave. He would go on rants about all sorts of nonsense, and I could never understand what he was talking about. He used the F word every other word and spoke gibberish in between. Some of my coworkers stopped serving him as he disturbed other customers, but one other coworker and I continued to do so. Looking back, this is probably where the problem started, because he began only coming in when I was working alone. I worked from 2 p.m. to 11 p.m., and he would always show up at night. He never came on my days off, which varied each week, so he must have observed and noted my work schedule by passing by during the day, which I noticed him doing often. Over time, I started feeling uncomfortable with his presence and the way he looked at me. However, being raised in a Christian family, I was reluctant to turn him away. My grandfather always told me as a child, "Manners are cheap, and never turn your back on charity." So I continued to serve him. But then he started making comments about my appearance, then my body, and he stopped asking for water. He just wanted me. He would come in, head straight towards me, and linger in the store for what felt like hours. The final straw came when he winked at me and said I always had a friend in him. The way he said it sent chills down my spine. So I decided to stop letting him in. The moment I was working alone, I locked the doors because I knew he would appear. The problem was, I knew he was watching me. I could sense it, and as soon as the last customer left the forecourt, he would approach the doors. I caught him watching me multiple times a day from alleyways and bushes. We got him trespassed, hoping it would solve the issue. Unfortunately, it didn't. He would still watch me, try to get in, and yell at me through the doors when I refused to let him in. I called the police every time he showed up, but he managed to escape each time. This went on for months on end. I was scared 24/7 at work and even had nightmares at home. There were countless incidents of harassment, attempted entries, and sightings of him watching me. But the worst one occurred when I was on forecourt duty, filling cars and cleaning the pumps. We have speakers at all pumps that are connected to an intercom inside, allowing us to communicate with customers without having to run outside. It's a large site with 12 pumps. While I was outside, I heard my coworker call me inside through the speakers, her voice filled with panic. Since it was daytime, my initial thought was that a customer was causing trouble. I quickly went inside and immediately heard the doors lock behind me. "Look over there by the bushes," she said with wide eyes. I turned to look, and there he was, peering in. The scariest part? He had one foot lunged forward, as if he was ready to run and attack the moment the doors opened. My heart sank, and I called the police, who arrived remarkably quickly. They were already there as I hung up the phone. The officer taking my statement informed me that he would be charged with criminal harassment, and a restraining order was in place. However, legally they had to issue a warning before he could be arrested, and he was released the same night. But enough was enough. I couldn't handle it anymore. I was constantly terrified. It wasn't a matter of if he would return, but when. The very next day, I handed in my 2 weeks' notice. Management didn't want to lose me and offered me a transfer to a site far away where he would never find me, or so we thought. I accepted the transfer, and the new site was great. All the staff were instructed not to disclose my new location to anyone, including the regular customers. They were told to say that I no longer worked for the company. For about 3 months, everything was peaceful. There was no sign of my stalker, and I felt safe. I no longer had to constantly look over my shoulder. However, the relief didn't last long. Just a month ago, the officer handling my case informed me that I had to appear in court and testify against him. I was terrified of seeing him again, but I convinced myself it was for the best. I had just come to terms with the fact that I could do it, and I would ensure he was held accountable. But then the worst happened. He found me at the new site. I don't know how he did it, but my best guess is that he asked a new employee at my old site, someone who wasn't aware of him, the stalking and the restraining order, and they told him. He must have taken a bus or made a remarkably long walk. He was approaching the doors quickly when I spotted him, and I ran away in a panic. I nearly knocked over my boss, who saw the fear on my face and asked what was wrong. In my state of shock and fear, I can't even remember what I said, but my manager locked us in her office and provided incredible support. She called the police and handled everything. I was trembling and in shock. We all believed I was safe at the new site, as the police officer in charge had assured us he would never find me there. While we were on the phone with the police, we witnessed him circling the site at least 3 times before the police arrived, apprehended him, and placed him under arrest. Thank God. Needless to say, I couldn't sleep for the next few days as I waited for the court date. The fear of him being released was overwhelming. 2 days before the court hearing, I prayed. I prayed that he would be convicted and that I would be safe. I honestly had no idea what I would do if he was released and knew where to find me again. This might sound dramatic, but anyone who has experienced the trauma of being stalked will understand. I even made the comment, "If he gets away, I think I'll kill myself." I genuinely felt that hopeless. Thankfully, my prayers were answered the next day when the officer handling my case called me. "I've got some good news. He changed his plea to guilty." I was at work, and I jumped up and down in front of customers. This is the safest I have felt in nearly a year, which has been the longest year of my life. But for now, it's over. Well, mostly. I have a sentencing case coming up, where the duration of his sentence will be determined. But for now, I can finally relax, knowing this monster is off the streets and, most importantly, unable to come near me. Deep down, I know it's not truly over. My gut tells me that when he's released, he'll come back. This man is obsessed and mentally ill. The only thing keeping me going is the saying, "Don't borrow trouble before it shows up at your doorstep." But that's the problem. I know he'll be back at my doorstep as soon as he can.